Hey, everybody, it's Gianmichael. I apologize that we're running just a few minutes behind tonight. You know how technology goes, and there is nobody worse at figuring out how to make technology work than me. I stink at troubleshooting, and so we're going to probably be doing some troubleshooting live on the show. But tonight, I'm really excited because presenting both the novice seeker and the more experienced practitioner with a valuable guide to working with a broad range of spirits is such a daunting task that very few authors ever go there, ever even attempt to do it. But our guest on this week's show, Chris Allaun, is no stranger to working with spirits. You've seen him on the show before. He's no stranger to presenting instructive and insightful material to help us to understand the different spiritual realms, as we've seen in our interviews with him on Upper Worlds and the Underworld and Otherworld. And tonight we're going to be unpacking his latest work, A Guide of Spirits, which allows us to explore the realm of our ancestors and how to support those preparing to transition into more healing and effective ways of being. And so we'll have more on that in a few minutes. We will be doing some live uh, troubleshooting to try and get Chris's camera on. If nothing else, you will miss his gorgeous face, but you'll be able to hear him because we do have audio. So when we get back from our introduction, we will give it a shot and see if we can troubleshoot this before diving in. And welcome back, everybody. As you can see, we haven't quite got everything fixed. Chris, welcome to the show. And if you by any chance have had Zoom open, or like one of those, like Skype, one of those sorts of things, you may want to look in the bottom right-hand corner of your taskbar and close that completely, and it might release your camera. Are you there? Do we still have audio?
Yeah, no, I don't have Zoom open. I don't have anything
Okay.
open. It's just my computer. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Okay. It's like Mercury in retrograde.
Exactly. Well, we can always do this when you're talking. So, so there is our guest.
Right, do that. Show some pictures.
Chris, it's great to have you back on the show. And, there's a lot of people that are tuning in tonight who may not have seen you on previous episodes. With us, of course, is our fellow faculty member and one of my brothers, Reverend Dominick Guerriero. Welcome, Dominick. And Chris, for those who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
So I've been studying the occult and paganism since like 1992, which kind of ages me, but whatever. I am a founder and a an ordained minister of the Fellowship of the Phoenix since 2005. I'm a Lakota pipe carrier since 2011, I think. And so my experience ranges from neo-paganism, witchcraft, shamanism, and Native American spirituality. So that's me in a nutshell.
Right on. So let's see if I can juggle this. At least we've got your name and the book on the screen.
I know.
And let's dive in and talk a little bit about that. In your book, you talk about dispelling the stereotypes of psychopomps as sort of creepy, shadowy figures that we see in pop culture films and artwork, from time recorded. So why don't we start there? Tell folks who may not have heard this term psychopomp before, what is a psychopomp and what does their work really look like?
So a psychopomp is basically a person or a thing or a spirit who helps the dead cross over into the afterlife. And so, one of the misnomers about death is a lot of people think that, when you die, the angels come and Jesus comes and takes you to heaven. And that's not always the case. Like sometimes in my tradition of paganism, when you die, hopefully the ancestors come and guide the way and open up the portals. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Or sometimes the ancestors come and people decide, you know what, I'm too young to die, or I have things to do, or I don't want to move on. And so they say they don't want to leave, and so they don't. And so a psychopomp is a person who helps the spirits of the dead who have decided not to transition, to transition and to leave and to help them cross over.
Dominick, did you have anything in that area of sort of like unpacking the mythology versus what they really are, like decreepifying psychopomps that you wanted to address to Chris?
Yeah, and actually, Chris gives two really excellent examples, and he gives a lot of examples in the book. One of them was Baron Samedi and Maman Brigitte from the Haitian voodoo tradition, which, he talked about, they function as psychopomps for the dead in Haitian voodoo. And another one, which I think a lot of people may be surprised at, is Saint Michael the Archangel, because generally we think of Saint Michael the Archangel as Mr. Slice and Dice, hack and ask questions later. But originally, Saint Michael the Archangel was connected to Hermes and Mercury and Anubis and all these figures in the ancient world, and he has the scales which weigh the souls. So I think a lot of people, I think it has a lot to do with like maybe the pop culture or new age image of Saint Michael as the defender of humanity, which he certainly is. But the psychopomp aspect and the healing aspect of him has kind of been lost or like kind of left on the wayside. And I love the fact that Chris mentioned that in his book, and it brought it back, to the attention.
Absolutely. And I've just got to say, Chris, I loved the book like I do all of your books. But do you want to talk about that a little bit about, like sort of helping to clarify, what was the first thing that came to your mind that drove you to want to write this book and write this book now?
Well, it was interesting because I've had this conversation a few times in the last few months. So back in October 2019, I wanted to do a tarot a book. I wanted to do something completely different than the underworld, upper world, other world, whatever. Because after I wrote Other World, I was done. I completed all the shamanic 3 worlds. I wanted to do something brand new. And then I felt this calling. I felt this need to write about Psychopomp, to write about helping the dead transition. And I was like, wait a minute. No. I want to write about tarot, advanced tarot. I want to do something new. But the spirits kept calling me saying, no. You have to do Psychopomp. I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling it. But if the spirits say it, I'm going to listen. So then I started to research and write in my own spiritual practice. I do a lot of psychopomp work. I have an altar for the dead. And so I help the dead cross over, and I have a spiritual, so I ward my house. I protect my home, and I say, all spirits are banned except the spirits of the dead who need my help. And so I helped them. And I had a lot of spirits say, Chris, you got to write a book about the psychopomp. And the whole time I'm thinking, no, I want to do tarot. And so I'm like, fine. I decided, like, okay, I'm going to put my own spiritual practice into a book about Psychopomp. And then COVID happened. And then everybody started dying. And then I'm writing. And when Chicago was shut down, it was like March 18th, 2020. And I was halfway through. I was almost through Psychopomp. And all these people started dying. And I started to get all these messages, emails, phone calls. Chris, my mother died. Chris, my best friend died. Chris, my son died. And I was like, holy shit. The spirits were telling me to write this book. Holy fuck. I'm sorry. I'm not sure if we can cuss on your show.
We can. But
I was like, holy fuck. I was ignoring the spirits. And of all people, I've been working with the spirits, and my whole life. And I wasn't listening because I had my own egotistical agenda. And I was like, okay, I have to finish this book about Psychopomp. Because what people don't understand is just because you die doesn't mean the angels come and take you to heaven. No, sometimes you die and you're pissed off. Sometimes you die and you're like, no, I'm 45 years old and I'm not ready to go. However, you should go sometimes, and you need to go. And it's the spirit helpers, it's us, it's the angels, it's the gods, whoever, who decides, hey, I know you're mad, I know you're upset, but let me help you. Let me open the way for you. Let me open the portals. Let me call your ancestors and let me help you. And I remember in June, I sent it to the publisher, and the publisher was like, this is amazing. I love your book. This is great. And then I had all these people say, Chris, can you send us something to help our dead cross over? And so I had to write something that was, when you write a book, you can't just like say, here, public, here you go. Here's everything I wrote. So I wrote something brand new, and I hosted a free workshop, a free Zoom workshop to help people help their friends, family, loved ones cross over. And it was so funny because I'm kind of oblivious. I'm kind of a blonde sometimes. And my friend Michael Herkus, the Glam Witch, I love him. And he was just like, and we were doing a show a few months ago, and he goes, "Girl, you wrote the book because the universe needed a psychopomp." And I'm like, "Oh my God, yes, yes." So when I was trying to write a book about tarot, and the spirits are like, "No, girl, no." You need to write a book about helping the dead transition. It never occurred to me. It never occurred to me until like we were in the thick of COVID and death that it needed to happen, and that's why the book happened. And I honestly saying I'm for not talking shit. I'm not trying. I'm not trying to glamorize this. It was the spirits who told me to do this. I swear to the goddess, it was the spirits who told me to do this.
Well, thank goodness you listened, because as I was reading it, I was thinking the same thing. You told Andrea and myself like over a year ago, before the pandemic, even so longer than a year ago, that this was the next project and this is what you were working on. And I couldn't imagine anything more timely than just in general. And then, of course,
But
as you
isn't
said,
that interesting, though, how I was talking about it and we had no idea about COVID?
how important it was going
Yeah.
to be. You know,
Yes. Isn't that
going
interesting?
through this pandemic, having had COVID, having had a close call, it made me think of 30 some years ago, and in the intervening years, as so many of my friends, died from AIDS, and
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
experience
yeah.
of being a young man or relatively young man, depending on which year we're talking about, having the opportunity to witness what I tell people is kind of like the miracle, like the two most beautiful miracles you experience in life is the miracle of birth and the miracle of death.
Oh, death.
And
Yeah.
until you've experienced that, you don't understand just how beautiful the transition can actually be. So I had a question for you, and as I
Yeah.
was reading the book, this question kept coming up, that I really wanted your take on this,
Mhm.
and then we'll see if Dominick's got any questions around this topic or other topics. But in your personal view, does it matter what the reader's view or belief about the afterlife is in order for them to really be effective as a psychopomp, in able to do they have to be in complete alignment with the person who's transitioning in order to help them, or does that not matter?
That's a complicated question because it depends. So I had a reviewer about the book, and they said, I have mixed feelings about the book, as uh, Chris says he doesn't believe in the Christian heaven, but he believes in the afterlife. And I think that if you're going to help someone transition, you have to be incongruent to what they believe the afterlife is. So, for example, if I was going to help my uncle, who's a very Christian, transition, I would take him to a place of the angels. Absolutely. However, my other friend who's a Buddhist and doesn't believe in angels at all, and he believes in karma and he believes in the bardos, I would take him to a bardo that's important to him. And then if I was talking to a pagan who believed in like Persephone and Hades and what have you, I would take him to Hades. Absolutely. So I think that you have to know kind of about what the person's spirituality is. However, in the book, I talk about if you're going to help someone transition to the afterlife, you have to call their ancestors. You have to. The reason is because we don't do things in a vacuum. We have to have a team. And think about it. Think about it. If you're dying, it's so much better to have your parents, your grandparents, your great parents who have this family connection say, hey, we're here to help you. We're here to help you. And then you can help them to the afterlife, whatever that means to them. I think it's important to talk to their ancestors, talk to whatever they think is spiritual, because I don't want to take them to a place that I think is correct for them. I don't want to take them to a place that's generic. I don't want to take them to the place of, oh, let me take you to the pagan underworld, if that's not your thing. And if you're thinking, oh, I want to go to heaven, okay, well, I don't believe in the Christian heaven. However, let me talk to your ancestors. Let me talk to your beloved dead, and let's go from there. So that's what I would do.
Dominic, I see you shaking your head. Go ahead and weigh in on this. I know this is
Yeah,
something
Please.
it resonates a lot. And before I get into that, I wanted to touch on what Chris said about how COVID has changed even the way spiritual authors write their
Yep.
books.
I hope so.
It really made an impact, and me as a medium, it definitely made an impact on dealing with the dead. But I even noticed, like, even when I went to the library recently, I had read a book by a pop culture astrologer, and even like the first paragraph of her book was like, I was writing this book and then COVID happened, and then I had to add that in because this is a global event that changed, society and the way that we view death, the way that we view, different things, and it definitely has an impact on the spiritual level. In dealing with the dead and psychopomps, and also what Chris was saying too, like how the spirits kind of pushed him to do this. I think that is a very common thing for spiritualists to happen. Like the ancestors, the guides, the deities will try to steer us like, okay, this is what needs to be put out, because maybe there's other books on tarot and you could write that in the future, but this is what's needed at the time, because collectively as a society we're going through that. And it brought to mind too the for me, the codifier of modern spiritism, Allan Kardec, in his time in 19th century France, where he was collecting the the writings of the different mediums at the time, and the spirits were kind of pushing them like, no, this needs to be put out. People need to know this about what the other side is like. And I agree with everything that Chris says. Like, you need to work with that person's spiritual frame and their ancestors and everything. But I also think too, and he brings this up in the book, is your relationship with your psychopomps that you work with. Like, if you're devoted to Hecate, who is a psychopomp, or you're connected to Baron Samedi and Mama Brigitte, or Saint Michael the Archangel, whoever, or Anubis, or whoever, like, so that you have that protection and that backing. And then I always like look at it like, when I do mediumship readings, it's more like my people are talking to your people who talk. It's like we're having this whole conference call, which is a little bit.
No, Dominic. I'm so glad you said that, because in the book, I talk about how when you're gonna help someone cross over to the afterlife, you call your ancestors and you call their ancestors, and that's important because
it's a team effort, like you said.
It's a team effort. Yes. It isn't about me or you or whatever. It's about everyone. It's about the community. It's about helping them. I'm so glad you brought up about the team effort.
Well, and we've got a question along those lines, and something that Dominic just said that I was going to bring up next. And Gwen says, in the deaths I've attended, the dying has always seen family waiting. So psychopomps come to those who die in states of confusion and anger and shock. And so the question, she wants to know if that's what you were referring to, and I wanted to say, so if talk to us a little bit, as you do in the book, really unpack this idea of earthbound spirits and angry spirits who aren't ready to cross over or were shocked to cross over, and how that how that relates to the experience of being a death doula and a psychopomp and a healer. That I love that you bring this back to the work that we do is the work of a healer, and that's really what we do when somebody's transitioning.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack in one question. So in the very first chapter of the book, I talk about how a psychopomp is a healer. If you are not a healer, you are not a psychopomp. And I can't stress that enough. If you are not a healer, you are not a psychopomp. And there are some people who aren't healers, and that's okay. There are some people who are teachers, and there's some people who are sorcerers and green witches and whatever, and it's okay. I'm going to say this again. If you are not a healer, you are not a psychopomp. A psychopomp is a person who understands, who is a spiritual therapist, who understands and tries to connect with the spirits of the dead who are having a hard time crossing over. And sometimes it's valid. I had a spirit once who got shot at a gay club, and he was like, you know what? Fuck you. Fuck you. I am not leaving until the person who shot me is brought to justice. Okay. And so I did magic and I conjured all kinds of shit. And I said, you know what? Your perpetrator is brought to justice. And he was like, all good. Let's go. I'm ready to I'm ready to go. And then one time I had a mother who died in childbirth. And she said, you know what? I'm not leaving. I'm going to protect this child until she's old enough to make decisions on her own. And I said, wow, I am not going to help her transfer over to the afterlife, because who am I to say a parent cannot be a parent in the spiritual, you know? And then I had an instance to where I met some drug users who overdosed and was like, you know what? No, I'm having a good high here. And that, to be honest, was the hardest, because it was hard to say, you know what? I can help you spiritually evolve into a place that you don't need that energy, and they didn't care.
Yeah, that's so beautiful that you're not making. I mean, I think it comes right to what you said, that if you're not a healer, this isn't the work for you. When we talk about beginning of life, you wouldn't want somebody who's not a healer, who's not a healing professional, healing arts professional, delivering your baby. Neither would you want that person to deliver you from this experience, this realm.
Exactly. It's the exact same thing, because if you think about it, there's two types of doulas, and there's a reason why we call it a doula and then a death doula, because you're helping someone birth into life, and you're helping someone birth into death.
Right. And it's never about you. And that's what I think is, it can't be about you. It can't be about you. It can't, that mother, none of us has the right, even if we were mothers, to tell that mother how they can do their thing. And so many times I talk to people who say that they're death doulas and say that they're mediums, and they tell the person, well, you have to cross over, you have to do this, you have to, or they try and force that person to cross over into the Summerlands, and that person has never in their entire lives heard
By
of the
the way,
Summerland.
by the way, I hate that term Summerland. I hate it so much. It makes me angry. It's very neo-paganism.
So new
Again,
age.
and
So new age.
it makes me want to slap people in the face. And the reason is, and I know if there's any people saying, but that's what I was taught by my teachers, and how dare you? So the reason I say that is because in my experience, and if you've read all my books, you'll see that this whole thing about like the Summerland and blah, 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 is our projection. In truth, if you really work with the dead, what happens is that the universe is gracious. The universe is kind. The universe helps us. So when you die, whatever you think is the afterlife, that's what it is. So if you think you're going to be in heaven with Jesus, have at it. That's great. That's awesome. If you think we're going to be Hades, great, perfect. If you think it's going to be the Egyptian afterlife, that's great too.
Yeah,
However, there's also a flip side to it. If you think you're going to hell, honey, please don't think that. Please, because that is a I'm sorry, it's not Judeo. It's a Christian bullshit propaganda thing. Hellfire, torment, honey, no. That's meant to control you. It's not going to happen. And if you think you're going to hell when you die, that's what's going to happen. The cool thing about that is that there's gods and goddesses and psychopomps like us, everyone here, Dominick and Gianmichael, who is going to teach and say, well, no, girl, no. You don't belong in hell. What you belong is an afterlife that teaches, that helps you evolve as a spiritual being.
And that's why we're so lucky to have our ancestors. Because
Thank you.
If we believed in one of those horrible afterlives, and we manifest that by cultivating those relationships with our ancestors and having mediums to help us with that work, then they can help us move beyond that. I mean, because that's a prison of our own manufacture, and they can say, you've got the key to this cage in your back pocket. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah,
Dominick, you were going to say something.
It brought to mind. I don't know if you've seen that the Robin Williams film, What Dreams May Come.
Yes,
it is like a gorgeous view of the afterlife, and it's exactly what Chris was talking about. And I made my grandmother watch that film because I had it on the DVD when my grandfather passed. And they knew each other since they were 13 years old. They were high school sweethearts. They married. And then when my grandfather passed, my grandmother was just like so despondent. So, after a few months had passed, I was like, can we watch this movie together? And, we were both crying at it and, from the happiness and the sad part of it. But it really, I think it really demonstrates the psychopomp like archetype, or the Cuba Gooding Jr. Character, which is his son, that functions as the guide to the afterlife. And he's like telling him, the Robin Williams character, like, you can make a heaven, a hell, a purgatory. And the wife was kind of like in that purgatorial / hellish state because she put herself there. And he was getting and he was acting as a psychopomp to kind of change her perception, like, you don't belong here just because you think you did something bad. That we could make a heaven, like any, we could make paradise from our thoughts and our feelings. And I think like that is a great movie to watch because it just illustrates it so beautifully.
Yeah, I thought as a gay man, I loved that film. And as a gay person, I also loved the end. I think this is the most breathtaking end of a film about death that I'd ever seen, the end of Longtime Companion, when this group of people who spent all their summers, Chris, you're on camera, yay, for this group of guys and women who spent their summers on Long Island, out in Fire Island. And any of those, you're both too young for this, but when I was younger, it was like the end of season, the end of summer, right after Labor Day. You said goodbye to all the friends that you hung out with and partied with and slept with and all of that for the whole summer. And really, it was insane because then we went over the Long Island Expressway back to New York City and Philadelphia, and we hung out with one another all year round there too. So, but it was like it was almost like a little grief every end of season. And in the movie, they made that the sort of the culmination of like when you would get back to Fire Island at the beginning of season, you got to see all your friends again, and that was their depiction of the afterlife. And I thought it was breathtaking. That film came out in 1990, right after my partner died, right after my parents found out that I had AIDS. It kind of like reframed that that mortality issue for all of us, and just saying, there is something after this, and no matter whether you're like me and don't do the heaven and as kind of physical afterlife mythos that somebody embrace, or you're somebody who does have a particular belief system around that, or more of a religious, spiritual belief system, there is something, and whether it's essential unity, or another realm or whatever. I just thought that was gorgeous. Chris, we're at the 36-minute mark. So in the next 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll let Dominick wrap up with any questions he has. If there were three, I know I just keep like throwing these like huge questions at you, but it's because you can handle them. If there were three big takeaways that you wish that every reader of this book, and guys, please get this book, because don't wait till the next COVID pandemic happens. But even with what we've been through in the last 2 years, and in the LGBTQ community, what we've been through, and I think it's especially timely this week because it's Transgender Awareness Week, and this has been also the most brutal year for transgender deaths. So there are a lot of people I know who will see this, who will have experienced this loss in a very personal way. What would be the three big takeaways that you would want people to get from your book?
Oh my God, that's such a
nothing like a light question to end on.
Can forget my camera. I'm having camera problems. I'm so sorry.
Hey, we can see you. That's just
as
joy as it is.
You can see me sort of, kind of. But anyway, I think the first big takeaway is, if you're gonna become a psychopomp, you have to be compassionate. You have to love people, and you have to love people at the worst. And the reason I say that is that you don't know where people have been on their spiritual path or the physical path or whatever you want to call it until you meet them. And, speaking as myself, I've been through a lot. I've had a whole lot of drama. I've had stuff. I've had life. And there are certain things I regret and things I tried to become better and things like that. And when people die of drugs, when people die of old age, when people die of cancer, when people die of diabetes, or people die of gang violence, our job as a psychopomp is not to judge them, is not to say, you should have done this and you should have done that. It's not about that. It's about saying, hey, listen, let's help you cross over. Let's help you transform. Let's help you transcend. Let's help you go to the afterlife. Let's help you become a better spiritual beings, you know? So that's the first thing. So the second thing is that death is not evil. Death is not bad. Death is not a punishment. Death is simply another part of the journey. It's another part of the, because the universe doesn't think good, bad, evil, whatever. It thinks, how can we make this person evolve and become a spiritual being? And sometimes to do that, death needs to happen. And not because they were bad, not because they did something wrong, but because they need to become the spiritual beings. They need to become whatever they need to be. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is love your ancestors. The ancestors, I always say, if you can only honor one thing, honor the ancestors. Here's a problem with that. A lot of people say, above the gods? Yes.
Yeah.
You know why? Because the gods have to, or God, the universe, the gods, whoever, have to take care of the universe, the earth, the people, the community. Your ancestors only have to take care of you. They only have to take care of you. And that isn't selfish. It's not. It's really not. It's your family taking care of family. I guess the biggest thing I want to say is just because your family's dead does not mean the family's not taking care of family. Trust me, if you don't honor your ancestors, which I think you should, but if you don't, and you don't have an ancestral shrine, your ancestors are still taking care of you. All an ancestral shrine says is, I honor you. Trust me when I say they honor you back. Trust me. They want, because think about it. You're the grandchild or great grandchild or the great, 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 great grandchild. They are taking care of you because you are their baby. I know it sounds funny, but if you think about it, you are the great, great, great grandbaby. Oh, hell no. They are taking care of you.
Yeah, I like to think,
Yeah.
I love to think that our ancestors have the equivalent of the ancestral shrines that we have on their side, and we're there. We're on their altars. Because that's what it feels
That's cool.
like.
I like that. I never thought about it. That's really
I seen that.
We're on their altars.
You've seen
really
that
cool.
as a medium.
No, not as a medium, as a friend of mine that's a Mexican bruja. Like I think it was a Mexican artist that did it. Like it was like a two-sided thing. Like the person was at the ancestral shrine, and on the other side was the ancestors. They had their shrine with our pictures. So it was like kind of like a two-way, and that's what Chris describes too. And I feel, ancestral veneration and honoring is the foundation of everything, because without that, you can't access because we know about the deities and the Orisha and all those things because of our ancestors. They're the ones that have continued these traditions. And what I like about Chris's book is that he made this, and as a medium, I love it because I feel like you were speaking my language. Like when I read that, I was like, I feel seen. I feel like this is someone that knows what they're talking about and what I'm going through and what other people are going through. And I was like, I just like the fact that you made it so accessible to people that may not have a foundation. I mean, I love your other books. I have the Otherworld one, but this one in particular, because of what we've gone through in the pandemic and because of what, the work that I do with my ancestors and guides, like I was like, no, this is the handbook that we need.
Right on.
Yeah, absolutely. This is the handbook we need. And that's exactly why I wrote the book, because I wanted to be a manual to teach people how to do this. Because, like, and here's the thing, even before COVID, I had friends who died from suicide. I had friends who died because of AIDS. I have friends who died because of cancer. I have friends who died because of life. And I was always doing this. I was always doing this work because, one of the things I vaguely talk about in the book is there's a Tibetan Buddhist a practice of Poa. And Poa is helping the dying through energy work, through meditation and what have you, about helping the spirit transcend from the body into the spirit world. And I've always done that because I've had incredible teachers. I've had Native American teachers. I've had Buddhist teachers, and they've taught me how to do that. And I wrote that in the book because I was like, you know what? It's time we gave this knowledge to the public. I was given the knowledge because I had it. So my Native American teacher is Oscar Apache, but also a Buddhist, which is this cool inner section. And I was like, why are we not teaching the public? Why are we not giving this magic freely to people who need it?
Yeah, when we miss out on that, we miss out on, like I said, one of the two greatest miracles that we get the privilege of seeing in our lives, and it doesn't change the grief or the loss of losing someone you love,
Yeah.
but it also anchors that moment as the grief softens to an experience that we're privileged to have been a part of. Chris, I want to thank you, and Dominic, I want to thank you. We are just a couple minutes over, and despite the technical hiccups in the beginning, we get to see that smiling face. It's so good to be with you again. And so great to have you on the show, and Dominic, to have you back, especially at a time when I think that we are going to see in the next 6 weeks, as this energy shifts and transforms into something new and powerful and beautiful. We know too that part of that shift and transformation is going to be a slight spike in the number of deaths that we see in our world as nature truly takes its course. And so books like yours give us something not only to anchor our hope to, but a new set of tools, which is what I think you've given us, is a shamanic tool to be able to turn to sort of transform or transmute this grief into something that serves not only humanity in general, but serves our ancestors in a beautiful and powerful way. So thank you so much for that and for being on the show. Dominic, thank you for being with
Thank
us.
you.
And everybody who's
Thank you.
tuning in, thank you so much for being with us tonight and for hanging in through the technical glitches in the beginning. I'm really not good at the technical side of this. And so to the ancestors, thank you for getting Chris's camera working. That was awesome. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys next week when our guest will be the author. I have to look. The author of the book, The Poison Path Herbal. Kobe Michael will be here as we wrap up and round out the season 4 for the brew. We'll talk to you guys later.